Let's begin. Hi, my name's Christin. I'm from TerraOnTheBench.com. We have a lot of information to discuss. First off, we're going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion and how it's being taken out of programs and initiatives due to our executive order that mentioned that it is basically, it says here, it's ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs. So, in someone's opinion, it's wasteful, and it's going to be, a lot of companies are actually on board with removing DEI programs, and that impacts a lot of environmental reviews. It's very important to the environmental justice sector, and now that it is being removed, how are we going to figure out how communities are impacted by everyday activities and actions of major corporations or any, not even major corporations, but if any project has a review for environmental justice, we're not going to be reviewing for that on the federal level because it's being removed on account of the executive order. Now, for the first video that we're going to be watching is going to be on how companies are quitting diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. This video was from 2 months ago, and it is by CNBC. How was everyone's day? Is everyone doing well? That's wonderful. Mine is great. I just want to make sure everyone's hanging in there, working toward the betterment of them and their lives. We are going to talk about how companies are quiet quitting, quote, quiet quitting, DEI initiatives. They're not going to be all out about it and say, oh, we're going to remove our programs and our initiatives. We're going to remove the diversity programs. We're not going to remove those. They're not going to companies are not going to openly say, oh, we're going to remove our diversity and equity inclusion programs. So some of these include what people mostly know this as diversity hires. People have said that it's more like a derogatory way of saying adding more culture and diversity to a company. And first of all, how are we going to work so hard for something like that and then just automatically remove it so quickly? This is what people were fighting for. And let's just watch the video. So this is our company's quiet quitting DEI initiatives. And this video was by CNBC 2 months ago. So let's begin.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, is a term you've probably heard quite a bit.
DEI.
DEI is representation. It's the number of people that you have in the organization that mirror the labor force availability.
The police killing of George Floyd and subsequent protests became a tipping point for companies across America. Fortune 1000 companies publicly acknowledged the importance of racial diversity, pledging $340 billion to promote change.
It's sad to think about DEI being removed from these programs and companies, because what have we been fighting for this entire time? What is Black Lives Matter, despite that actually being a illegitimate program? The fact that the founder of Black Lives Matter was using their funds to fund their own house, their mansion, and bring all their family into that space. But that's besides the point. Despite that being an effort of, inclusion and, making the community more involved with diverse and multitude of cultures, now we're taking these initiatives out because of the executive orders. Now, before I go further into this video, I'm going to show you exactly what executive order we're talking about. And that is right here. We're looking at federalregister.gov. And this website here provides us with a list of all of the executive orders. This one's EO 14151. And this is ending racial and wasteful government DEI programs and referencing. In this executive order, we are seeing the following. So, agency or department DEI or environmental justice positions, committees, programs, services, activities, budgets, and expenditures in existence on November 4th, and an assessment of whether these positions, committees, programs, services, activities, budgets, and expenditures have been misleadingly relabeled in an attempt to preserve their pre-November 4th, 2024 function. B, federal contractors who have provided DEI training or DEI training materials to agency or department employees. Federal grantees who receive federal funding to provide or advance DEI or environmental justice programs. Section 1. Purpose and policy. The Biden administration forced illegal and immoral discrimination programs going by the name Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, DIE, into virtually all aspects of the federal government, in areas ranging from airline safety to the military. Pursuant to this executive order, nearly every federal agency and entity submitted equity action plans to detail the ways that they have furthered DEI's infiltration of the federal government. So the claim here is that the public release of these plans demonstrated immense public waste and shameful discrimination. That is why they are removing DEI as an executive order. It says, Americans deserve a government committed to serving every person with equal dignity and respect. That was the whole focus of creating DEI programs, though, was to provide respect and be more inclusive to the minority communities and the minority individuals. Okay, so then we're taking that out, and it's going against what the whole purpose was of that in the first place. So there's no one's on the same page here. And something that people don't know is that the DEI programs are what gives life to an environmental justice position, environmental justice reviews and programs, and diversity and inclusion programs and trainings. So this whole entire executive order you can already see it now. It's already happening as we speak. They are being removed from programs and different organizations and federal agencies. Look here. Agency or department DEI, or what we say environmental justice positions, committees, programs, services, activities, expenditures, budgets, and an assessment of whether these positions, committees, programs have been misleadingly relabeled in an attempt to preserve their function. So they're going to review these programs for being misleading and not actually serving the role that it was set out to be. However, I don't think that is the case. The whole point of creating these committees and programs is to do exactly what is being claimed it's not doing. Federal contractors and grantees who have received funding for these DEI programs are all going to be reviewed for validity to make sure that they are actually doing exactly what they're saying they are in these initiatives. Let's just say whenever a business or an organization wants to use federal funds and it goes through a review process to ensure that compliance is set forth, there will be no more, well, at least now, there won't be an environmental justice component to it, meaning we're not going to be reviewing for environmental justice. That means we're not going to make sure that whatever project is being done in a specific area, we're not going to review that area for vulnerable communities, people with low income, areas prone to high levels of air pollution or toxins in the air. That's basically what this is taking. There will be no programs or reviews for those specific issues and concerns. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do for the communities and the vulnerable communities who are in locations? For example, let's say if they're in a community where there's a brownfield, where there's excess burning of materials and supplies, we're not going to be reviewing for air pollutants because that falls under environmental justice. Okay? So you're not just looking at the labor force. You're not just looking at diversity hires. We're looking at the bigger picture as well. environmental justice, which is also an environmental and climate concern. So this is crazy. Well, let's just continue.
But that is starting to change. The commitment to DEI appears to be wavering.
Squawk, Deere is pulling back from DEI measures.
Technology companies made big cuts to those DEI programs.
Lowe's is the latest company to roll back DEI efforts.
Major players have pulled back their initiatives amid growing conservative pressures, uncertain economic conditions, and a politicization of the practice.
Harley joins Tractor Supply Company and Polaris in scaling back or changing DEI policies following a campaign by activist Robbie Starbuck.
Well, there's a new player in the marketplace, and that is the conservative consumer who has woken up to the fact that many companies have divorced from the idea that customers are king.
But DEI advocates argue that this retreat may be overstated. Is it the normal ebb and flow of social initiatives, or is there a shift in corporate culture?
DEI is diversity, is representation. It's the number of people that you have in the organization that mirror the labor force availability.
When we're challenged with growth.
So when the organizations were already planning on removing these DIE initiatives, they kind of set precedent to the fact that now we are actually removing them, and you guys are already one step ahead. But how? How are you already on board with that?
Opportunities, we're often told to think bigger. You've got to think bigger. Well, you in and of yourself and your existing team, in your existing structure, can't think bigger without new perspectives. And that's what leading bigger is widening your perspective by including others.
Despite challenges, a 2024 study found 75% of U.S. executives highly prioritize DEI, and those executives are being more vocal about their support. In a letter to shareholders, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said that the initiatives are driving inclusivity, innovation, and stronger financial performance. And MasterCard's chief administrative officer acknowledged the company's continued commitment to equality and fairness.
Cultures bringing in
diversity among CEOs is also improving, with more women, Black, Asian, and Latino people occupying the position since 2019.
Over 70% of leaders choose proteges that are of the same race and gender. We like comfortable, we gravitate to comfortable, but what we have to realize in today's world and tomorrow's future, comfort means stagnation. It means a lack of change, a lack of forward movement.
So if you look...
So being out of your comfort zone, companies, corporations, bringing in people from different diverse areas is what systems need. You need to be able to have different ideas, cultures, having the different experiences, being able to combine into a melting pot. That brings in different ideas, high performance too, because people who have different ideas, when you collaborate, you're adding one layer of knowledge to another layer to another layer, and that's going to bring in accelerated growth to your company and innovation as well. So being comfortable and not hiring people, because you want to be comfortable, know people who look similar to you is not good, because you're too comfortable. Not comfortability is not going to get you anywhere. Sometimes that even goes as an individual. When you're too comfortable with life, or you're too comfortable with where you are, you're not going to grow, because it's the same thing over again. You're not adding any value to what you're doing because it's the same thing.
Everybody who's sitting there is a white male, and you're trying to sell products to a multiracial world marketplace, and you don't have anybody who represents that thinking, then you're probably not going to do very well in the marketplace.
Exactly. You need people to represent and know where their consumers are coming from. So if you, like she said, if you have all these white people in trying to sell something for, another group of people, or in a minority community, they're not going to relate to the product because they haven't lived it. They don't know about it. So if you want to accelerate your business and accelerate the workforce, you're going to have to bring in people from different backgrounds and different backgrounds, different histories, different ways of living, different cultures, and they'll be able to relate to their consumer base, and then bring in the profits. If you're so concerned about profits, blah, blah, blah. If you're so concerned about profits, use that skill, bringing in people from different cultures and backgrounds to layer up the knowledge, become innovative, and bring in different ideas. Bring in different ideas, and then you'll have what you've been looking for.
DEI advocates point to several benefits, including improved innovation, recruitment, and company reputation.
We say we don't want to have people figure out how they fit in. We want to help people figure out how they stand out.
In 2023, more than 75% of companies in the S&P 500 use DEI metrics in the pay of CEOs and other C-suite executives. Still, less than half of U.S. corporate employees say their executive teams reflect the diversity of their employees in 2024. One of the problems with diversity initiatives is getting shareholders on board, especially when it is hard to translate to dollars.
Everything doesn't have to be quantitative. So we live in a society where if you can't count it, if you can't quantify it, then it doesn't matter.
And these are some of the sample metrics around the power of inclusion and inclusive workplaces. You've got over 70% more likelihood to generate revenue from innovation revenue, which is new products and services revenue. You have 70% more likelihood to capture new markets. You have a higher level of team performance. You have a higher level of collaboration. And importantly, given how critical talent is today, you have a much lower.
So there are a few words that basically summarize these things. We want collaboration, diversity, inclusion. You want these in the foundation of your business or your programs or your products. Because collaboration is what is going to get ideas from every which way and can definitely benefit your mission.
In recent years, DEI efforts have seen an uptick in pushback, and more than 100 bills have been introduced in 30 states aimed at restricting these initiatives. And some executives are increasingly wary of taking public stances on social issues, which could cause legal risks to businesses. 9 in 10 executives believe taking a public stance on a social issue is riskier than staying silent, according to one study.
It's a broader swath of Americans who are just sick of all the divisive woke stuff. They just want to be able to exist in the marketplace. Recently, several...
And that's why we've got that executive order that's removing it, because apparently someone feels like it's wasteful, it's diluting the overall mission of profit, and it's taking too much time into it's taking away the productivity of reviews, funding, programs, and situations, and that's not the best way to think about it. Okay.
Several major publicly traded companies and household names, including Tractor Supply, John Deere, Harley Davidson, Ford, and Lowe's, scaled back their DEI policies.
As we look down that list of most trusted brands by conservatives in America, we realized they all had these policies, and they were all opposed to the fundamental values and tenets and beliefs of conservative consumers.
Robbie Starbuck has over 1 million followers across his social media platforms and has been able to galvanize conservative consumers.
So there's a real financial incentive for companies to look and take very seriously what we're saying and pull back where it's appropriate to pull back.
More people now have permission to be, quote, anti-DEI. And I think that for those organizations, they probably were already only doing it because they felt it was the socially acceptable thing to do. So they really weren't doing it because they saw this as a critical aspect of their business success.
U.S. companies spend an average of $8 billion a year on DEI. Training can be costly, ranging from a couple $1,000s to well over $1 million, depending on company size.
The DEI departments at large have cost quite a bit of money and have borne very little fruit.
The budgets are definitely being cut. We do find that in this era where there's so much backlash, we do find that organizations' budgets, have been cut.
Board members are far less likely to prioritize it.
The board has a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. These boards are understanding that when we reach out to their company, that there is proof already in the marketplace that we move the markets. And I don't want to destroy any businesses. I want to help restore the heart and soul of corporate America, which is the idea that the consumer is king.
One study found that while only 20% of U.S. companies plan to cut or eliminate DEI initiatives in 2024, the landscape is complex. many organizations continue to view it as essential for business success.
There are many, many organizations who are still doing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and who have come out and said, this is not optional for us because we know that it is a business imperative. This work goes in waves, right? And so there's the time when things are kind of quiet and you can just work the system and get things through. Nobody's really talking about it to the extent that we are now.
DEI pullback is a bit overstated, as organizations are largely doubling down on commitment, but risks are apparent, particularly to organizations who take public stances on social issues.
I think there's no question that the future is going to be won by companies.
Exactly. Most of the organizations who include and strive off of diversity, equity, inclusion, if this executive order is being implemented, then what about the livelihood of that company or the work that they're doing? Is the value of their work less valuable because it's being removed? Not by their choice. If it was up to them, they would keep it. But since this executive order is in place, it's like now the initiative to not include DEI in programs and companies is going to decrease credibility of the organization in a way, because now that's not what their mission is, by no fault of their own. I mean, they could still, if they own their own company and if they're in charge of their work, then they could still implement those initiatives. They just won't be funded by the government. That's what it is. So they could always, companies who work solo can always implement DEI initiatives because they have control over what they do and they have control over their trainings and things like that. But if they want to see any type of support or funding from the government, that's where they're going to say, no, it's wasteful. We need to review that to make sure it's not misleading and not incorrectly used.
Companies that choose neutrality on divisive political and social issues. There's no reason that we need to know the social position of a diaper company.
Our values of liberty and justice for all, our values of equality, should take us there because we want to create a world that works for all. The better off I am, the better off other people are.
Yes. Great. Now that that's done, I'm going to need to show you guys another video. Actually, no, we're done with the video. But I did want to say that the environmental justice section of the executive order is already being removed from government reviews. So let's say the EPA, for example, they review a lot of projects that come to them for environmental justice concerns, meaning they are reviewing for toxic particles, toxic particulates, particulate matter. So let me show you what I mean. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has reviewed many environmental justice toxins, including asbestos, lead, mercury, different leachate material, particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, carbon. Some of these chemicals are released from, let's say, manufacturing plants that are no longer there. They review for these materials because a lot of Superfund sites have been known to have leachate, and some of these materials and these toxins release into the environment, and they leach into the neighboring canals and surfaces and soils. So the purpose of the environmental justice portion of the review is to ensure that these hazards are not going to adversely affect the minority or the vulnerable communities that are in close proximity to these, let's say, a Superfund site or areas that have been tested by the EPA and have recorded levels of these toxins or chemicals. And now that the executive order is not acknowledging the EJ portion of a review, It's just that we're not reviewing for environmental justice. We're not reviewing for the concerns of the minority communities or vulnerable communities or low income communities. So that's going to be that's going to impact climate. It's going to be a social justice issue because we're not concerning the vulnerable and low income communities and things like that. So you can already see it taking place. It happened so fast. We heard about it. We were worried about it. We said, oh, they're going to take this executive order. Or what are we going to do? They let us know what we're going to do. We're not going to do these reviews. It's crazy. It makes me wonder, wow, what all the work that we have done, it's totally being dismissed. This is being dismissed. The work that we're doing is being dismissed. And by we, I mean people who have worked towards environmental justice, Black Lives Matter, despite that being a total, what is the word? What is the word for the total, gimmick for funds for a specific individual? It's so sad. It's crazy. So, that's that. I would suggest, if you're interested in reading more about the executive orders, go on down to the federalregister.gov. That will provide you with 2025 executive orders. It'll give you a list of all of them and a lot of the different ones. We've got establishing and implementing the president's efficiency. You can read these. Withdrawing the United States from WHO, So that's what that is. In the next episode, we're going to discuss why America pulled itself out of the Paris Climate Agreement. And we're going to get a little bit of a deep dive on that. I saw a post of someone providing information on the Paris Climate Agreement. It was explaining how it was beneficial. And then I went to the comments and I said, is the U.S. still part of this? I mean, I knew the answer was no, so I put no. But then I saw someone else say that, oh, it's too bad that the United States is pulled out of it. And I'm like, yes, it is very bad. That, on top of the EJ removal, diversity, equity, inclusion. So, yeah. I'm just going to stay, optimistic. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to join the next episode. I enjoy doing this. Please comment in the Twitch stream. Please comment in the comment section. I want to reach more people and I want to be able to have a discussion on these topics, get people's insight, and learn together. As I said, Terra on the bench. Let's sit together, discover forever. Please visit my website, terraonthebench.com. I have a blog and I have various videos on sustainability and climate topics. And please subscribe to my newsletter on my website. All links are there. And visit my channel, my YouTube channel. We can watch together, explore together, and learn together forever, right? And please like and subscribe to the channel so that I can grow. My channel is fairly new. I am growing and I am interested in learning a lot about these things. And if there's any other videos that you'd like to watch, anything else you're interested in, and we could discuss it and have like a dialogue. Okay. We'll continue this tomorrow or the next day. Bear with me and thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.